Man, welcome back. Jeff Robertson Show. Been back on site tonight, coming in live from parts unknown. Billy Ferguson's back with us for our bi-monthly episode. Um, we were just chatting there, talking about some business as we were leading up. Billy, I wanted to tell you a couple things that I work on almost weekly, and it kind of falls into the business segment. Tonight, we were talking about a little bit of money when we were coming up there on just um, how people process their money and how their relationship with money is. And sometimes when I get called in, I've been doing a lot of business coaching, and in other news, I got a 4-day leadership workshop that I signed last week, last week. That I'm working on a curriculum for that, and I'm going to deliver that. Part of that's going to include DISC. For some new leaders, we're going to work on some personality testing, and then I'm going to go and spent about a total of 16 hours with this group on just elevating their leadership team. So I'm really excited about that. So this week, outside of that, is I get to work with all sorts of business owners, and I had this client this week. He was out of I think he's out of Louisiana. Owns a business, dad getting started out of the gate there. And sometimes when someone tells me, Jeff, I'm not making any money. I got money coming in, but I don't know where it's going. I don't, or I'm the other one I hear a lot of is I'm afraid to charge that much because I'm afraid they won't pay it. Um, Guilt, Billy. I think you and I have talked about that before. Is one of the things that a lot of entrepreneurs deal with is feeling guilty about charging for their service. As simple as that is, right? You would think the guy who washes your car, he would be like, "Man, you just busted your butt washing my car. Hey, let me, I want to pay." Like, they feel guilty when it comes time. Um, so, an example I use sometimes when I'm working on it, I got a couple I'm going to give you here. And sometimes when I'm trying to break the layers into like, why is this business not making money? Is I get deep, man, and I enjoy that. And I think some of my past and interview and interrogation techniques, eyes up to the left, eyes up to the right, deep breath. Um, I think that some of that allows me um, the ability. Plus, sometimes I just, you get the feeling, or or kind of vibing, but you know that there's an underlying issue. And so I'll start talking with people, Billy, about their relationship with money. And I'm like, most of the time, people grew up knowing a couple different things. Um, Rich people are jerks. You ever heard that, Billy?
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
Ri-
Absolutely.
Rich people are jerks. There's another word that was in there I didn't want to cuss. Um, Money is evil. Money's the root of all evil. I can't tell you the number of times I've heard that.
But the
Uh,
Bible doesn't say that. I hear that a lot too. The Bible says that the love of money is the root of all evil, not
yeah.
money. So,
Scarcity. There's not enough money. Uh, uh, um, there's not enough. Work harder or else. Like you just gotta burn it down and money, or to get money to come in your door, you just gotta absolutely 20 hours a day getting it done. And the last one comes into I don't deserve money. There's just folks that don't feel like it's tied into their self worth. Somewhere along the lines, they've been maybe kicked down. Um, yeah. So when I get into these conversations with entrepreneurs, because here's what you'll learn in entrepreneurship. The goal, what I try to teach every entrepreneur when they're coming out is like, especially when they get going, I go, well, listen, most entrepreneurs' a good goal is to make $100,000, like just straight out of the gate. If most, when you get into senior level, you get to be our age or whatever. Most people can go and find a job and make, oh, not quite, but you could teeter pretty close to six figures in the right industries. And um, so I always teach entrepreneurs is, one of your goals should be to try to make $100,000. And the guys out on the West Coast, they'll tell you, like, especially where they're at, is where incomes are higher. Is one of the old guys I used to work with. He would say, If you can't make $100,000 in your business, you probably should go work for someone else to make $100,000 because it's just one of those things you should strive for. The key to 20 or to making 100,000, this is what I teach, is you need to do about 130. And I've shared some of this with you
Mhm.
privately. I'm going to talk about
Absolutely. Yeah.
tonight. All right, you need to do about 130. Uncle Sam, swipe 30% to Uncle Sam, tax man. Um, just the way that works. 30% is going to go, it's going to leave you. That's the other good conversation I like to have about that people don't realize, because when you get that check stub, your money gets direct deposited into your bank. You get that check stub, you see what's taken out, but you got, hey, this is what I need to live. So you just don't have get transactional. You look at that and you look at it, and it's very transactional. You start your own business and start, figuring out how bills are going to get paid. You realize how much taxes that you're paying. We've talked a little bit about that. The key to that 100,000 or 130 is simple math. Right at 11 grand a month, $2,500 a week, or five on a 5 day work week, $500 a day. That's simple. You're gonna start a service business, do $500 a day, 5 days a week. Repeat that over 52 weeks,
Got it.
made $100,000, right? And people get hung up on that. So here's what I try to work with them on these money mind blocks. Rich people are jerks. And, here's the thing I teach people when we get into rich people are jerks. Wealth is an amplifier of who you are. If you like to help people, absolutely. Um, the more money you have, the more impact you're going to be able to make. And I anchor that statement when I tell people that, hey man, listen, broke people can't help nobody. You might have a big heart and you might have the hands and some tools, you might go mow somebody's yard or whatever, but if we had money, we're gonna be able to get people in that can solve the larger problems on what you're trying to do. You know, which leads into money is evil, and money's just it sits there. It doesn't move. It's a neutral tool. And when you use it with integrity, it creates impact. The other one, there's not enough money. Scarcity mindset is a huge one. Money don't grow on trees, Billy. Why you got that refrigerator door open and the front door standing open, letting all the air out? Money don't grow on trees. What's wrong with you? Whack, you get whacked in the head. Um, Money's always moving, man. Yeah, I look at some bigger numbers sometimes, and when you look at when you go, let's say this right here, like let's say me and I had Bitcoin when it was, let's say I bought Bitcoin, 100 Bitcoin when it's $10 a piece, right? If I went to cash that out today, and I said, Billy, you know what? Cash out all my Bitcoin. I'm done. I'm gonna cash it out. You know what they're gonna do? They're gonna put the money in my bank account.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right? They it ain't like they're gonna be like the alarms are gonna go off. Oh, Jeff Ferguson wants his money. No, no, no. There's $1 billion companies, there's $1 million companies, there is absolutely plenty of money. Money's always moving. So create value that attracts it, right? Work harder or else. That's one that I try to overcome with just clarity. Like I'm all about hard work. Put your time in, get it done. But we ain't sitting here to kill ourselves working. We ain't on this earth. We're here for these quality relationships and the impact that we make and things along those lines. And that's where I step in with some of the stuff that I also got to work on before I get to my last money one was some of the tools that I'm teaching in AI. And I've had the opportunity to go in and work with some businesses one on one. I've had some Zoom calls with different business owners because I am what I call an early adopter of AI. I'm not an expert. I just use it and I'm not afraid to use it. But I know it makes sense to me on how I can use it inside of businesses. So I worked with this business um, last week, and I went around the room and was like, "What's the worst part of your day?" And they would say, I have to do this, and I'm like, all right, here's how I want you to use AI in your everyday. Just using simple tools, nothing, just your basic AI tools that are readily available to us now. I'm like, here's how I want you to start using AI so we can maximize your time. Is your money and I'd look at the boss or the league and I'd say, is their money made in spending hours trying to solve this problem that drives them nuts, or is it made in over here? And they're like, absolutely over here. And I go, okay, well let's so working to help people with my AI strategies just where they can get better and more efficient. um, AI is a tool that is absolutely here to stay. It's like Facebook. We everybody hates it, but it's here to stay. Um, but and everybody's kind of nervous about AI is going to replace this, replace that. Here's what you'll find: AI is not going to replace anyone, but someone using it will, because there has to be a human in the loop for AI to do what AI is supposed to do. Um, I got to be in some rooms with some really smart people that is um, your Googles and people that when I think about technology, some of your people that the names that are in the cutting edge in technology development. And here's what I learned: they're trying to figure out how we're going to use AI too. Like Jeff, how? So I get to tell Google, like, Jeff, how do you use AI to help business owners? I sat down with them, it's like, this is all the tools and all the things that I teach them on how they can make their days easier. So when you look at Work Harder or Else, AI is here to help you complete your task, especially the ones that are data driven. It comes down to, it'll help you write an email, it'll help you do social media posts, things that drive you nuts that you run out of words for. I start with the simplicity of that, and then I moved into some pretty advanced analytical stuff that we can do with data, and it's it is absolutely spitting out things in 10 seconds that most people spend hours trying to figure out. So as far as being able to work harder or else is, man, there's better ways. And sometimes just about spend a few bucks with Jeff and let me sit down and walk you through. And the company, when I was done, I feel like we saved them, Billy. I bet we saved each employee an hour on their day, maybe more. And I don't have that data quite yet, but I would say that when I can take, when I'm like, how long you spend on creating an email? And you're like, well, sometimes it takes me 30 minutes to draft it and do this. And I'm like, and I can cut that down to about 35 seconds. And all you gotta do is proofread it, cut and paste it. Um, with the proper prompt, with the proper loading. That's the stuff that I'm teaching. So anyway, to beat that one in the ground. And the last one is, I don't deserve money. And that is that is a lot of self-worth. And it is, I don't feel worthy. And you self-sabotage and you sabotage your success. I'm totally guilty of that, dude. I'd get to trucking along. And a little bit of this comes from survival mindset, and that's kind of where I was stuck. We've talked a little bit about that, and we talk more about that in my identity workshop and keynote that I do. Is I was just stuck. So when life would start going good for me, I'd figure out a way to screw it up. So I was like, I'm going to be in control of my screw up. I'm just, because life always comes along, screws it up for me. I'm going to just be as reckless behavior as I can. And I'll take care of this. I'll just self sabotage. But if you can turn that around to, I'm worthy of wealth, and my value creates results worth paying for. Um, Absolutely a game changer. Um, so I wanted to tell you a little bit about those, because and it teed me up to where I spent more time. I created some content on the law of words, and it's a little bit beyond money. And when we talk about our leadership part, um, this is. Let me tell you. Let me ask you this, Billy. How many times you heard people and your, especially your line of work? I'm not a leader.
Oh,
I'm just not a leader, right? Um, I'm not disciplined that way, or I've always been this way. Those are those words that we put out there, and they come from a negative inflection. And when you say that I'm not a leader, business owners will say it in a sense of, I'm not good at finances. I just, I got all these numbers here. I'm just not good at I'm not good. I'm horrible at marketing. I am not good at marketing, while they're talking to me. And what I teach them is how to reframe those words. Same thing with that money mindset is how you approach it is going to create all it does. If you work in any kind of neurolinguist programming, NLP, if you do any research on that, folks, all we're doing is rewiring this to this. That's it. It's just we're changing. I used to teach people when I used to do this at the dealership. You ever answer the phone with a frown? You ever done that, Billy? You ever answer the phone with like you got your frown, like you kind of frown? You ever do that?
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
I
you,
have. Yeah.
what happens? You lead into it with what?
A negative attitude, or yeah, just pessimistic.
Yeah,
That's right.
I told I teach customer service teams now, man. I'm like, if you having a moment, pause before you answer that phone. You pause, take a deep breath, and smile. Okay, yes, Jeff can help you, and watch what happens. I said it will it will flow absolutely great. I'm not leading. I'm not a leader becomes I'm becoming more confident leader. Hey man, I'm a I'm not a good leader yet, but I'm committed to working on getting better. Something along those lines. I'm becoming more confident. I'm just not disciplined. I'm learning to show up differently. What I teach in business owners, I'm not good with finance. I'm like, whoa, I don't want to interrupt you here. I love to interrupt people, but I don't want to interrupt you. But here's what I want you to say is, why are you having this meet with me? Because I want to get, I just want to talk about my finances. Okay, all right. So here's what I want you to start saying. I'm working on getting better at my finances. And man, I'll tell you, that's been my last probably 2 weeks of. I got excited because I love those. When I get in those reoccurring things, I'm like, man, I'm having the same conversation. Like the world's sending me the same people with the same problems, having the same issues, and I'm just rinse, wash, and repeat. And so I sat down. When I start getting repetitive conversations, I create content on it. So that's what I want to share with you as part of the business. Part tonight as we kicked off there, dude, was just some ways that maybe you coming out of public safety, where it's always you have the opportunity to be, we sometimes we say go and just call it like it is. Nah, man, it's a better way to call it like it is. Um, and it teased me up to tell you this. All right, so I texted you the other day. Got to go to Bristol Motor Speedway, Atlanta Braves versus the Reds. Um, did you catch a game or anything?
Yes and no. The day it rained out, of course, I watched some of the pregame on TV, and I watched the half inning or whatever it was they played. I watched that, and then I actually forgot the next day, and then I caught some near the end. But yeah, it's one of those things that I had to watch it because it was unique, and you flip it on. It's kind of like I watch one hockey game a year, and that's the one on New Year's Eve when they do the Winter Classic outside somewhere. That's the one I watch. But I want to add something to you there that you just said, Jeff, that made me think. So a couple of years ago, I did a leadership program. It was 16 weeks that was taught by General Colin Powell, and he made his catchphrase was exactly what you said. You just said a little bit different. Is that you bring the weather? That was the main focus. Is that when you come into a meeting or you come into an office or you come in to do a group, you set the tone for that when you walk through the door. You can come in and be a tornado and a hurricane, but you brought it. Or you can come in, it's a sunny day, you brought it. So one of his catchphrases, he's got like a book that we went over and dissected through. It's called, the title slips through, but it's something to the effect of 13 Habits of Successful Leaders or something like that. And I've got that book and I've read it several times. But one of the big things in there is just you bring the weather. And when I used to go to some meetings that I thought may get spirited or tense, I'd always write that on the top of my computer or on the notebook somewhere that you bring the weather. And when I feel myself getting a little anxious about, how this is going, whatever, I'd always look down and reflect back to that class. So I think it's something that what you said was exactly what General Powell was teaching. He just phrased it in a different way.
And what I'll tell you is I think his is called 13 Rules of Leadership.
That's it.
Um,
Yep, that is it. Yep.
13 Rules of Leadership. And here's what you'll find. I told somebody this one time. I gave them, I have these little isms or little nuggets or whatever. And I was working with another coach. He was in the gym, and me and him would always stop and just share, our what's going on. Hey, the kids are this, and he coached basketball, and we would share like his. Sometimes kids struggle, and us as coaches, and I told my kids this. I said, if you guys and your teammates realized how much time me and the other athletic coaches that work together spend texting, sitting down, talking about you all and what we can do to help elevate you. And he had some kids that was just struggling, and I said something like what you're talking about there. And he says, Jeff, I'm going to use that. I'm going to let them know that you said it. And I go, I ain't say that. I said it to you. I said, here. And he goes, well, I don't want who actually said it. I said, I don't know. Here's what I'll tell you. Everything that's going to be said has been said. We just change it. We just change how it's going to say it. And you might hear it from somebody else. I said, but by this time, we ain't making up new phrases or new words. We might be moving them around. And um, so there's and I think what you find there sometimes, Billy, is the Colin Powell thing spoke to you, right? And it was
Right.
like it really set into you to work. And I've had them come to me from, from different influences in business. I started off heavily into John Gordon. If you're looking for
Oh, absolutely.
his energy bus book will absolutely take a negative person if you will read it and spend some time with it. It'll absolutely help flip it. But him and Dave Ramsey was some of the earlier business and entrepreneurship, and then a little bit of leadership, and then whoever they was talking about on their shows or podcasts is who I would kind of follow because they were all in the same circle. Um, so I heard a lot of that similar stuff from him. I was going to tell you about Bristol. You want to hear a little bit about it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then I made some notes here, some stuff we can talk about, and maybe a comparison of another event that took place. You're probably miles ahead of me, but
No,
uh,
no, this is good. Me and my son, they we it was raining here, and then it canceled our one of our tournaments. So me and him bought these tickets the day that they announced it because he's a Braves guy, and we wanted to go to this something. So he got the tickets for his birthday, and so we was excited. We loaded up, man. Bristol, when you go to a NASCAR race, you take in food, you take in a cooler. It has to be in clear plastic bags, and in the cooler, you can take in your own alcohol, no glass, like very specific. MLB, no food or outside drinks. So we knew that. So we stopped and got us something. And then they had a fan zone area. Um, so there was, and it was billed like they had heavily advertised. They had a big stage there where Jake Owen was headlining that big stage, but they had acts that started at like 1 o'clock. Game time was 7, and they had acts that started like that stage kicked off at 1. So when you when we got there, we paid for parking in advance. So and they had really good job of communicating your egress. That way you knew to park in the lot that was gonna where you could because they shut everything down and you can't if there's no right you ain't turning right to block up they mess up that exits down there. You got to go the way the egress is. So great job on that. But here's what I noticed right off the bat. We walked in, we went down to where the fan zone area was. You're talking about probably 4 o'clock. We got there right at 3 o'clock. He's not a country music guy, and he was like, I don't know who any of these people are. I'm here for baseball, and we was going to go down and find us a hat. And turns, if you know anything about Bristol Motor Speedway, it's all hilly and it's kind of sets up on a little knoll. But walking down there, they had the fan zone in the where what would be the equivalent of turns 1 and 2, down in that circle of the speedway. Big stage, all your food vendors, anything that you were going to do as a fan was right there. Um, do you know what the attendance was?
of the game
Yeah,
or the fan zone type thing.
what of the game?
I heard it was announced at 91,000 or something
All right.
like that.
So
Uh,
keep in mind at 4 o'clock, on game day, there's thousands of people that are in this confined area that was trying to watch a concert, trying to get something to eat. Every food lines was an hour, at least an hour long. We stood
Well,
and they had two souvenir areas there, both with roped off things. The lines, Billy, were beyond all of that, and we probably stood in line for souvenirs for over an hour just to make our way through that line. They had when you got up there, they had two, four, six. They probably had 8 to 9, 10 people working and was managing the people, just grabbing a hat or shirt or what have you. But they dumped all those people right in that area.
well, let me ask you something now. Now I heard through the grapevine, and I don't know what's to be true, and I got a couple other comments when you get done here. But did I hear right that to go to the fan zone, you did not even have to have a ticket to the ball game? That you could get into that. I don't know if it was a separate ticket. I'm sure you had to pay some fee, but you do not have to be a ticket holder to the game to get into that. So that even added more crowd. Was that true, or is that
I
rumor?
don't think so. Yeah, I had to have because I had to show my baseball ticket when we walked. He said I
Okay.
just need to see your ticket. So I don't think that part was opened up. Um, I don't think that part was opened up to the public. But Billy, there is a tremendous amount of people. So your baseball, like you could throw the pitch, you could do the hitting thing for the kids. They had some Hall of Fame stuff, really neat setup. It was just they with NASCAR. Here's what I'll tell you about NASCAR. NASCAR, all that stuff would have been spread out. Your stage may have been down there, but you would have had all your other food vendors would have been spread out along the way, so it wasn't confined into um, that one area.
So
So go ahead.
go ahead. No, well, I think that we can spin this back around a little bit to public safety, but there was a big failure in pre-planning, and I think what the first thing that came to my mind here is that they were holding this event at a speedway that typically drew in years past. I think the capacity is like 160,000 people
Yeah.
for a race.
Their last significant was in '98. We looked it up, so I was curious. 148,000 was at the NASCAR race in
Yeah.
'98.
So I would bet that they didn't
Yep.
have those problems before that. So they're looking. They wasn't preparing for a NASCAR race per se. They were preparing for a baseball game, and the average attendance of the baseball game is like 45,000 people. So now you got
Billy,
three times that.
let me interrupt you because I like to interrupt you. Let me tell you one other fact so you can consider this. Tennessee played Virginia Tech. I think we looked that up, and there was 200,000 there for that.
Yeah,
If you,
but they didn't have those problems. I don't think.
yeah, no, not I'm aware of. But I wasn't there, right?
Right.
I wasn't there, but here's a couple of the things that I noted. Um, when so we did all the fan and Tim McGraw, like there was I had an email that said, hey, make sure you're in your seat so you can enjoy the concert. Tim McGraw was playing from 6 till 7, and then they was going to do the on field stuff. So I heard when Jake Owen finished and then he kicked off, most of the people left that fan zone, and it got to where you could move. We still stood in lines for um, 20, 30 minutes to do the pitching thing. My son did a couple of things there, and then we was like, all right, as soon as we're done with this, we're gonna walk in. We go up to the gate, and um, I had when I went to Ohio a couple of weeks ago, I ended up out in the middle of nowhere. I think I told you that out in Hocking Hills, cell phones didn't work, and I remembered I was like, crap, I forgot to grab the code to the Airbnb off of the freaking listing so I could get in the door. Once I got to the Airbnb, I had Wi-Fi. But so I was thinking, so I had downloaded the tickets, and they had sent out a note saying, "Hey, just remember, cell phone service may be sketchy because of the number of people that's going to be here." Generally, when I go to a large event like that, NASCAR's who we're using as an example, they bring in, they hire out support towers to come in, so your service. Because here's why: is it's just as important for those fans to post their pictures and to post their videos of the action and all the other stuff because it's exposure for the sport is in general. So most of the time, you'll find that those localities and large events, they'll have cell support come in. They'll buy, they'll have rent Verizon's towers to come in offset. To just make sure there's plenty of cell support. There wasn't, I couldn't get no service. So anyway, I was already ahead of that with my tickets, and there was a little line to get in there, and then up to our seats. And what I realized as we was walking, it's not a big walk. Once you're inside of Bristol, it's tight. Everything's pretty close by because of the bowl effect that it has. The lines inside was crazy. Like I just noticed, like right off the bat, food lines were backed up, already. And I was like, "Hey, let's." I told my son, I was like, "Hey, let's go up. Let's get our seats, and we don't want to miss the first pitch. We're gonna watch your first pitch, and then we'll come back. When the game gets underway, we'll come back and eat." And he's like, "Perfect." Well, here comes the rain, right? So that was your big thing is they get they get down to throwing out the first pitch, and before they could take the field, the rain set in pretty hard. We exited underneath the bleachers. So when I got on the bleachers, dude, the food lines were long, like super long. It was like it. So we started walking, and what they had is they had turns 3 and 4 blocked off, and they didn't have open any of those concessions or food vent areas where you could create kind of a spill area, overflow area of to help control that many people. They put all those folks in basically the front and back stretch in turns 1 and 2. Turns 3 and 4 were closed off, and none of the concession areas were under there. So we just started walking. When I got under there, away from all the crowd, my phone started working. So I was messaging, checking the weather, doing all the things. And so we went up and we found this. Um, we kind of stumbled into one line, and there was, and I was like, "Is this the end of this line?" The guy was like, "Yeah." And it was right at the rope. So we jumped in that line to get some food. When we got up to the window. Um, she was like, "Hey, we've got desserts left." And I was like, "Okay." Well, I said, "We're good. We'll wait. I mean, you need to let these folks know it's going to be a minute." She goes, "Sir, we don't know when we're going to be restocked." And I was like, "Sorry, you guys dessert?"
Yeah,
I
we
was
don't
like,
have
"All right."
no food.
Yeah, I was like, "Give me those desserts," because I'm in my head. I'm like, "All right, this is not good." So we got desserts, and we went back to that area where no one was at, hung out, and um, everybody been flowing on the booze and everything. But here's what started happening: everybody they were all running out of food, and most of those lines were in 30 minutes or more. So 9:40, if you remember, they came back on. They were like, "Hey, first pitch is going to be at 9:40." We were close to leaving. I was like, "I don't want to miss this first pitch. I know what they're going to try to do here. They're going to try to get this game in." So we went back in. They called it 9:40. We're going to do so at 9 o'clock or 9:10. I looked at my watch. And I said, "Hey, we got 30 minutes." We was up in our seats. I said, "We got 30 minutes. Let's go to the restroom. Just that way we don't miss this first pitch." I get downstairs. The food line is not that long, so I jump in it. I waited. We got some. Finally got to eat, but we waited about 35 minutes in that line. Now my son, he got up. He took off because I had to wait a little extra time. But we made it to our seats. Watched the first pitch. Watched the first half of the inning, and then when the Braves came out to pitch, it started opening up. So we ended up back under watching it on TV underneath there. So here's what I learned there from it. So they end up calling the game. We get in the car and we drive home because I needed to be back in Roanoke that night. Um, so here's what I learned, dude. After like the whole, we started just kind of walking around before we left. But then when I got back, I was just, and the next morning was just checking the feed to see all the things. They ran out of food. Like they had, people were pretty frustrated at the lines. I'm telling you a little bit of this because it leans into. I've been tasked to do a customer service hospitality type. This is how, when you're when you're at a restaurant like this. Is I just there's not a lot of people that's doing training on that right now. So I've been tasked to work on just on and delivering exceptional service. So my mind has been really focused on good service, mediocre service, poor service for examples and content for that class that I got coming up. And so I made notes. The food lines was a big deal, I think. And then they only as much money, that hat we paid $60 a piece for hats, and they were not sitting still. Like everybody was going through there. They go through no hat, walk out with a hat on their head, and getting the jerseys are like. So that's just a big money maker for them. They only had those two merchandise areas open, and it just seemed like a missed opportunity. Those merchandise trailers, man, they should have been out on the side of the road. They should have been parked somewhere where if you was at your, like the NASCAR guys do, where as soon as you got out of your car, you should have been able to get your hat and all that stuff because if you don't have to carry it, you buy more most of the time.
Why do you think that? I mean, why do you? Because and I may be way off here, but you know, I'm sure that event, the overall management of that was the Bristol Speedway management that were used to doing these events. I mean, I wonder why they didn't put it out like where the NASCAR halls are outside, where you can get that. Because even if you go to, a professional baseball game anywhere, they'll have vendors outside the stadium to sell things. I just wonder what the thought process was there, but not doing it, or no, it. I think it was a bad idea to start with.
The
And I was going to tell you earlier. Are you familiar with what they call Fry Fest?
Yeah,
Where the guy was going to put all these celebrities out and flew them all out to
yeah.
the island. That's what I've heard this ball game compared to. It's like
Well,
somebody coming there with grandiose ideas that weren't bad ideas, but didn't have the logistics and stuff to support it, or maybe didn't have the money to support it. And you were talking about those. Just imagine that the money was flowing through that place. I mean, you talk about $60 for a hat. I mean,
you look at a can of beer. I mean, you can't. I think they were. I don't drink beer, but
probably
it was
$14, $15 probably for a
yeah,
beer. I mean, I
yeah.
was at a Baltimore game a couple of years ago, and beer at Baltimore was $13 a beer.
You couldn't like NASCAR normally let you bring outside food. You couldn't on Saturday. You couldn't bring no alcohol in that stuff. So everything was. They ran out of food, man. They kept replenishing those beer things. That was some of the comments I'd read where people were starting to have negative interaction with people who had overindulged in alcohol. And the issue, what compounded that, was they put everybody so close together. Like you didn't have, if it was like being on the. Here's how I described it to the wife. It was like being on the third row of the concert the entire time, right? It's that you're tight and
Right.
you go to move, like I'd have to stop and say, I need to go that way. And most time, like I'm just, how it is, you follow the flows, you can manage, but like there was points and times when I was like having to stop, pause and say, I need to can y'all let me through right here? That was, I think, compounded the issue when you add in confined area booze and somebody, remember our buddy Terry next one that bumps into me and will knock him out, right? So it's um So all right, here's the other thing I was going to tell you that I thought was kind of like just a little kicker was Tim McGraw, right? Indian Outlaw. He's playing his dad Tug. They're gonna have a little video. He's gonna finish with the signature song there. And um, when we got up to our seat, the stage, we were on the front stretch just down below the start finish line. So we actually sat kind of behind home plate. We had first base tickets, but we actually sat behind home plate. The stage, Billy, was angled toward the backstretch. I couldn't even see it. I didn't know where the band was playing. I'm like, where is it? Where are they hiding? Is it because it's rain or the inside? They're like, no, he's in that black box over there. And I was like, what? Like you couldn't know that one side could see it. So I guess the theory was we was all supposed to go over there, but my email said for me to be in my seat. So I ended up watching the concert on there. They had that big jumbotron, which was cool, great experience. But I was like, I could have saw Tim McGraw at home, right? Um, I was curious to why they, and I want to wait to the aftermath to see why they, you got 94,000 people. We're going. Why did they turn the stage to where only half? Because I paid for our tickets were not cheap. I didn't get $26 tickets. I had some we paid a couple $100 for our tickets to sit where we sat it because we wanted just a good experience to be there. So that was another one that really surprised me.
Think they'll do it again?
Um, here's what I also tell. Me and my son was talking about that, and I said, they had one football game and they were done.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that now and I think if they did do it again, it's got to be something else because the uniqueness is not there anymore. And
I
one
would,
thing
I would,
what the thing that I can't understand now is, or I guess I understand it, but I don't see the big deal is, they're going to move that field
yeah.
to East Tennessee State University. That's going to be their ball field. Well, to me, moving it, they're going to dig it up and just go down there and plant it down again. I don't see the fascination with that. Now, what will probably happen is they'll probably put it on some kind of truck and take the field down there in one piece and put it down. I just don't see how that could happen.
It's all rolled turf. It's the dirt's the dirt.
But you
Like the
still
dirt
have
was.
the clay and all that under it. I mean, I just don't
Um,
see.
well, you got to think about it. When they raced dirt, they brought some dirt in there and raced cars on dirt there a few years back, and no different than us putting the monster trucks in the Civic Center, right? It's moving
Right.
dirt's not a big deal for those tracks. They're gonna roll up that AstroTurf. They had there's a I watched a video on where the dirt came from Pennsylvania, the turf came from somewhere like they broke it all down.
Okay.
All right, so let's go back to your question. If it was Jeff and Billy, we would absolutely try to do it again because of the lessons we learned from the first one. Because I think when you do that, you have the opportunity to capitalize and learn from your mistakes and make it better. It's just like all the headaches you go through opening your business. Everybody's like, "I'll never open another business." I'm like, "Oh yeah, we will because we learn how to do this now." Um, what would I think would fit well there? All-Star game. I would absolutely, because I think if what they do now and how they got their layout, they could absolutely put an all-star game in there and have just record-breaking attendance for an all-star game. And the home run there would be there's a couple home runs that were hit out on the track. They had it marked. It's like 400 and some odd feet to the center field, and then behind center field up on the track wall, they had 591 or 598. So if one guy, it was just we're like, holy crap! Wouldn't it be neat to see one get hit that far? But
So here's what Billy and Jeff can do. Let's run the Bristol race while the game's going on.
All right, so that's if you followed anything in the accounts that I work for, that was what I had said was it would be really cool is if they had this baseball game going on and they were running laps. The other thing when they hit a home run, they had a Corvette with a home run flag race around the track. And they call it, here goes the home run car. And I said that thing should have, because Dale Jr. years ago when his dad died, the year he won the Pepsi 400 or Coke Zero, whatever it was back then, he was driving the All-Star baseball car. And I'm like, the only car that should be on that track when a home run hit should be a race car with that paint scheme going around the freaking track holding that home run flag. That would have absolutely blew the top off of that stick. Because most of when you talk to the baseball fans, a lot of them don't know NASCAR. They don't know the loud. I told someone texted me and they were like, how is it? And I go, it's the first time I walked in this place and didn't smell racing fuel. Yeah,
Yeah, it is. And you bring some valid points I hadn't thought about. I think it would be excellent, like for the All-Star game. And another thing, I think the draw was there. In Tennessee, there's a big push in Tennessee, especially in Nashville, for a Major League Baseball team. Baseball's big at Vanderbilt University, and it got a lot of support there. There's actually a group trying to bring a team to there. So I think that what was a good push for having it in Bristol. And just another tidbit of information, if you're ever on Jeopardy, did you know that the guy that designed it was a Salem native?
No, really?
Yeah, the guy. It was a big thing on TV. I seen the other day. I think it was on Channel 7 or Channel 10. But the guy that actually designed it, the concept, and come up with how it was to be laid out and everything is from Salem. Now, I don't think he lives there anymore, but he grew up in Salem.
They and when we were, I like to point out the things that I like to point out. Me and my son, we were riding, and I was like, "Hey, this," or I was like, "Check, Saturday night. If that rain would have held off and they'd have got that game in, because you had fireworks. I mean, it was going to be awesome." They had laid out a really good thing, but the rain, that it messed it up. And I told him, I was like, if they would have made it into, if we'd start clicking off some innings, nobody, I don't think anybody, because we'd all been in our seats, the food lines would have been what they were. It would have, the game would have replaced a lot of the complaints that people had. And then, but I was telling him like, hey, when these are things that you look for, these are in the safety world. So I took it there, and I was like, putting us all in that area. I know there's probably a reason that they thought that was a good idea. From just everybody had to go through metal detectors to get into that area and all that cool stuff. And I totally get that. I said, but they didn't. I don't know that they quite thought out the just from a public safety standpoint of putting all of us in that area for that amount of time for that long of a day. Even I've been to Ozfests and the big outdoor concerts and things, and this was way more confined. I was pointing it all out to him Saturday or Sunday on the way home, and he was talking about it. And I was like, just keep in mind, from customer service this, and I can't, something else that happened or whatever. And I pointed out to him, I'm like, don't ever do that. When you're working with customers, don't do that. And finally, he goes, "This is what I was going to tell you, man, about just perspective. Words matter." He goes, "Dad, you have a good time?" I'm like, "I had a blast." He's like, "I did too." And he goes, "That's all that matters." He said, "Brady," he goes, "You had a good time. I had a good time. We got to spend a day together. We got to spend 2 days together, driving up and down the road, chasing things." He says, "The best part was the Braves won." And, and I told him, but later, and I told him, I was like, "Dude, I really appreciate that, your perspective on that, because, we could sit here and bitch our way through this thing, not, and just drive it in the ground about how ignorant the world is and how stupid this, that, and the other." And he was like, "It didn't disrupt me. I had a blast." He goes, got rained on. There were some times when didn't know. He says, "But we made it worwork." And
But
I
20
thought
years from now, he'll be telling everybody that he was there. You can't
yeah,
never take that away. I do wonder why that, because while we're talking about that, it was one is, I think that was a short time frame that they put that together. I don't think it ain't something they've been talking about, at least publicly, for 4 or 5 years. It was a short time frame, but there was a lot of logistics had to be put in on the Major League Baseball side too. Just transportation, getting them in there. Where did the hotels? I think one team stayed in Bristol, one team stayed in Johnson City, I believe it was. But the other thing was, is I just wonder why they didn't do a complete series there. Why they only done one game? To me, it looked like, especially from a Major League Baseball standpoint, the logistics would have been better to have done the entire 3 game or 4 game series there, because I guess they scheduled. Because I was wondering when it rained out, or were they going to leave there that night? Because at the time, I didn't know that they could come back and play on Sunday, and I guess that had been worked out. But it just looks like to me it would have been logistically, especially for the teams, to have done a complete series there.
um, great question. And I don't, we all right. So we get into event insurance, we get into some extra money cost or what have you. Um, is there obligation to their city stadium in Cincinnati, that because it was the Reds' home game.
Okay.
Um, it was their home game, so they had to. Um, they were the ones that got to make whether the great game was called or whatever. It was all on their watch. They're the ones that had to make those decisions. So I don't know. And that's a great question. I probably will. You'll get my brain working on that one. I'll just go and see why they didn't. But I would probably tell you at the end, MLB or whoever rented Bristol Motor Speedway for that event. So it was probably just in a cost side of it wouldn't have made sense if to do the entire thing there. Maybe that's that I can see that being the case. But MLB's not. They've got some pretty deep pockets to make something like that work. I would, if I was going to do something like that, man, I probably would err on the side of that guarding that fan experience reputation type thing. The Reds, a couple of the radio people, I saw some of their Twitter stuff to where they were just kind of, but they're also folks that their job is to point out negatives and to hit
Right.
and to create conversations around that. So I totally get their perspective on just wanting to kind of pick it apart, and they should, because that's what their job is, not mine. Mine's to spend time with my son, look at the positives. Um, so they were pretty frustrated on it, and a couple of the comments I saw was like, it seems like MLB, you could see the touches of MLB, high touch MLB, low touch NASCAR. NASCAR knows how to manage 90,000 people in excess. MLB doesn't. So you spoke to kindly what a lot of the comments I had read was as well, to where one is known for managing, large outdoor crowds, and one is still manages, but not to that scale. And here's the thing: is more of a controlled environment too. And when we was in Detroit, we went into their stadium. Their infrastructure is set up; it's all there. Their bougie restaurants and all that stuff. That's all places that are pre-designated, inside of the stadium. There's not where NASCARs, you end up, there's food trucks that are paid to brought in and vending food and things along those lines. And then when you get inside, you've got track concessions, kind of like what you do in MLB. But I don't know, man. It's cool. It was absolutely a neat time. And I looked at it from the lens of if I was, that incident commander or whatever, or had to be in on that pre-planning, I'd like to talk to whoever just to get them to feedback me on, you know, the benefits of putting everybody in one section for that fan zone versus spreading everyone out. And at the end of the day, they ain't got to justify crap to me. I was just curious into that decision making, to why that was been a good idea. It seemed like we would have spread that out a little bit more.
I got two comments. One is that you know, you made a comment there earlier that I thought from another perspective. You made the comment that Cincinnati probably rented that stadium out. I looked at it from, this was all a Bristol event, and that NASCAR in Bristol paid Cincinnati to come, and they covered all the costs and worked it out. I never looked at it from the avenue you're looking at it, because to me it looked like I guess I see what you're saying. It was a good thing for baseball. Maybe not the stuff that happened, but the exposure that game got. That if Atlanta had been playing Cincinnati, Cincinnati or Atlanta, either one, it may not have had that exposure that it had. But I think that Tennessee had a vested interest on bringing that in too. I just have to think about that a little bit. But I was going to ask you, what was security like? You mentioned metal detectors, but was it increased to what a normal baseball game would be, or how would it? What did you think?
Um, yeah, it wasn't like I've gone to NASCAR events and felt like it was too much. Um, one I've worked NASCAR events. I've spent way more time as a fan as years went on, just because I'd rather been on the fan side. It's just a long day, um, and I, I I don't. That's what I was thinking about that. I don't like when I was in that fan zone. Um, I don't know. Like the officers, it's not like the officers were standing intermingled inside of that fan zone with us. Um, like I don't remember saying, "Hey, excuse me, officer." Or now, when we got inside the track, I saw some troopers. There was some different folks that was just presence. Like their presence was known, but I don't felt like it was overwhelmed. The reason why I tell you that is I've been to a couple of NASCAR races before where there was freaking 10 guys with AR-15s and big guns standing at the entry gate where you just trying to walk in and get your ticket scanned, right? Um,
Well, that's what I'm thinking about here too, because I was in Miami about 4 years ago at the Orange Bowl, and it was like that too. I mean, you had tactical teams standing at each gate with long guns, you know, and I thought that had half the crowd of what this had.
yeah,
And then unique, it would have been an excellent opportunity. And I go back to the public safety hat now. that would have been an excellent opportunity for a lone wolf to make a
Yeah.
statement there that this game is really being televised worldwide. Uh,
Yeah, I thought all those things and all those moments, they crossed my mind just because a little bit is just I'm self aware of that. That's just based on my background. I also got my kid with me,
mhm.
and I enjoy teaching him flaws that I notice. They use the new scanners to where, and I ran into this in Cedar Point this year, to where like you remember you used to go up if you got a bag on, they'll search your bag and they'll go through your thing. Now the new detectors is when you go in, you should take all the metal out, like it's just keep walking, sir, keep walking. So me being old school, used to the old rules, is I pull my phone out. I carry it's probably more of a fanny pack. Yes, it's a single bag, but it's where I can keep my phone in, and I got a charger in there, and I can carry my wallet in there, and it just makes it easier. Um, it's a tactical fanny pack, Billy. I don't want it to sound like I was wearing a fanny pack.
That's cool. I get it.
But I was walking through with that, so I picked that bag up, and I was going through there, and I was like, and I pointed, and she goes, you keep coming, you're straight through unless I tell you. That's what she was saying. Straight through unless I tell you. Straight through unless I tell you. And I got to her, and she goes, sir, we're doing straight through unless I tell you. Remember? And I was like, I started laughing. I was like, you smart ass. And so anyway, they had the same type of walk-in security. So that's probably, I mean, I don't know the technology on that. To answer um, your question, and this just comes from Grok, MLB rented Bristol Motor Speedway. Um, uh, yeah, so MLB, according to this response, rented it for a record draw of 91,000 people. And then me being me was I asked what it cost to rent it, and Cletus McFarland had rented the track for events during the Bristol 1000. Da, da, da. He said he compared the price to a decent helicopter, which ranges from 300 to 500,000. Um, High six figures for a multi-day event, but he didn't disclose the money. Um, and then it talked about regional tracks can be around 12,000 a day. You got to have additional insurance, and then factor in $200 per worker per day, um, to for the event as well. So anyway, it seems like according to this, MLB rented it.
Well, I just wonder, that makes me think that maybe this whole event was initiated by Major League Baseball. I was thinking it was all initiated by Bristol Motor Speedway, just based on the football game and everything being there. But just what we're learning now, it doesn't appear maybe that was the case.
Yeah, and that's interesting, right? Because I mean, think about it, Billy. I mean, you can go to Bristol Motor Speedway and have this big old event down there. Um,
Well, yeah, we're gonna have to negotiate some sponsorship and some underwriting there. But
so we pack a house, Bill. We charge. Hang on, it's 100 and that thing will hold. We just heard NFL or college football put 200,000 in there. Shoot, man, we charge $100 a head.
well, you mentioned earlier the college football, and I think Virginia Tech played Tennessee there. I'm a big UVA fan, and uh, I caught a lot of heck at work after that game because they said that UVA wasn't going to be outdone by Virginia Tech playing Tennessee there because Virginia was going to come down to Franklin County and play Ferrum at Franklin County Speedway, and we was going to take care of things there. So I had to put up a lot of grief there for a little
That's
while.
a pretty good one. That is pretty good. I can say, and so it got me thinking. Like, I come up with all sorts of cool videos. I had a little league baseball team playing in front of your local short track. I mean, can you imagine? It had me thinking about as a kid going to Franklin County Speedway. Can you imagine cars racing around that track? There's a little league baseball game going on in
Hey
it.
man, Whitey put wrestling in there. You remember those days, when Yeah, the NWA in turns 1 and 2 while racing was going on.
Eclipso used to wrestle up there. Him and Ricky Hall. Remember
Yeah,
Eclipso versus JC Hall? I remember that.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I remember Eclipso. I don't remember the JC match, but I remember Eclipso. And
I've
everything.
killed an hour telling you about my 2 weeks. What's been going on with you, man?
Oh man, I'm just happy to be here. I do have some exciting news. You burst my bubble tonight because you always ask me what's new and what's exciting, and
Yeah.
I just you and I spoke briefly on it. I believe it was yesterday about uh, the next thing spinning out of the Jeff Robertson show is that we're going to try to put together a newsletter, and me and Jeff have
Yep.
not talked a lot about that, just briefly. But I think the idea I have is maybe putting something together, maybe getting it out once a month to all our fans that have provided us email addresses and stuff to get that out, just to kind of to fill in your day between when you're catching our shows, and we would mail them out, but stamps are high for the thousands of listeners that we have on the program. So stay tuned for that in the next month or so. But yeah, everything's going great. I looked at that a lot, and I think that that there was some, and I'm not being critical, because I mean I can understand that where that they're not used to managing an event like that, and I'm sure they brought in other experts, maybe people that had managed the Super Bowl or the Rose Bowl, or something, maybe that I think me and you talked a little bit earlier about the hockey. They've done that for quite some time, where they'll play. It started out just being a New Year's Day game of hockey in an outdoor stadium, and now they actually have a winter series that's like, I think it's like 6 or 7 that they do around at different stadiums. It's unique. I enjoy watching that because you get the elements added to the game, because they play with the snow and rain and whatever, and that's that is that. And I will say that watching the part of the game that was only an inning and a half Saturday night, man, I could not. I don't know what it looked like there, but it looked like they were playing in a lake when you was watching on TV. I mean, it was
when
water
the
out.
water starts dripping, the water's dripping off the pitcher's hat. That's when I
Yeah,
was
and
like,
then and another thing, and I don't know if they said anything there about it, but on TV they made a statement, and I think it's some value to what we're talking about too, was that this was a racetrack, so they didn't have the infrastructure there that a normal stadium ground crew would have. I mean, they didn't have tractors with drags on them to go out there. They had guys with rakes from Lowe's and bags of kitty litter or whatever they was putting down on the field, dirt or whatever, and they were hand raking it. And they were really giving some compliments to the ground crew, because they didn't have all the nice stuff. And I'm sure that that field was built great, I'm sure, but it probably didn't have the drainage like a typical field would have, and stuff like that. So the ground crew really deserved kudos for that. And I don't know if those were professional
they
ground
did.
crews or what it was.
It's funny you say that. One of the things that my son commented on while we were underneath and the Braves was pitching, because the Braves gave up. They gave up 2 runs pretty quick, and we always like to say, "There goes a freaking no hitter." The water started to pond on the field, and they were so committed to try to work through that little burst of rain, thinking it was going to move on. They were running out there. It was pouring, man. It was like it was raining dang hard enough to where it was starting to pond up, and they were running out there with bags of dirt trying to absorb the standing water. And finally, my son was like, "They're losing the field." He's a bat boy at the Red Sox, so he's tuned in on anything. If you want to talk about grounds and when they respond and how they manage or whatever, 'cause he watches all those guys do their job, and girls, and so he got pretty critical. He's like, what are they trying to put there? It's raining. He's all they're doing is making more mud. Come on, y'all. You gotta wait. This is just not, you've covered the field up. You're losing the fields.
Looking at it on TV, you was talking about scoring those runs, and I believe there was a home run, and then the guys scored or something there, but it looked like on TV it was worse between right where the shortstop would be.
It was
second, third base, and
it came in there first.
I thought he was going to drown. Just running through there, because it looked like when he went through, the water was up to your knees or whatever. And I'm like, man, I can't believe they're still playing. But then I got to thinking, well, this is, And at that time, I thought maybe they had to leave that night to go somewhere else. I'm like, man, they can't schedule this game. They'll stay there all night to play this or whatever. And I guess if you didn't go back the next day, you didn't get no comp on your ticket or nothing like that. It was just
No, we went back. No, we went
oh,
back,
you
buddy.
went back on Sunday.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, heck
You
yeah,
drove back to Roanoke and then went back.
yeah,
Oh wow.
yeah. I got in. I got laid. Closed my eyes at 2 a.m. and then we was up and out the door by 9:30 to get there for the um. When we go, you can go get off at Abingdon and Waze or now like I used to get off at Abingdon and go down through Lake Holston, I think it's called, and then come up. I think it's 341 or 241 or something other there, and you kind of go in the backside. And we always parked at this place called Copperhead Road, and it's the easiest to get in and out at Bristol Motor Speedway with 100,000 people. We've gotten right out on the highway, so I couldn't do prepaid parking there, and I was nervous that I was not going to be able to drive up and find a spot that I wanted, and that you wouldn't have had no problems at all. But now with the way the apps are, it took me on the outskirts. Like I got off at exit 13, and then it runs you down the back roads into Bristol, and you kind of driving through the outskirts of the Bristol city limits and through the around the town, and then it puts you out right where you go into park at the track there. So they're like that whole facility and infrastructure is built on getting people in and out, man. It is it's that part went no problems. Now here's what I will tell you. Um there was not a record breaking crowd there on Sunday at all. Like you could have sat anywhere you wanted to. You could have moved around. A lot of people didn't come back. And we were talking about that as why didn't those people value their tickets? Did MLB buy up a lot of those tickets and to get that attendance up to where people or the corporations buy tickets where people weren't financially invested in it? There was a lot of people. There was a lot of Cincinnati there. I did folks that sat around us. I was shooting the breeze with them, and they came in and spent the night or whatever. And some of them had left because they had to be back to work right on Monday. It was they didn't have that day off, so there's a few folks that left sixth or seventh inning. Just they're like, yeah, we're gonna move down here. And we're going then that way we can get to the car and get out of here. But leaving both nights, that night and then the next day is walk to the car. It's always a good little hike. Walk to the car, quick restroom break, and then take a left. And we were literally on the 4 lane within 10 minutes tops.
So the
And
flip
then
side to that, you mentioned people not coming back. If you didn't have
yeah.
a ticket, did they let you in Sunday? Since it was,
No, they still scanned you in. Here's what was noticeable. I was posting and my phone worked with no issues on Sunday.
okay.
I didn't have any connection at all because of the volume of people was there. And then you couldn't, it was very noticeable in the stands that it just wasn't, the crowd did not come back for whatever reason. And parking, like we had parked in that big field, this field where we parked it's called pole position parking. They do camping, but their field is just it's massive. And you're probably parking each section's probably the equivalent of a football field. And we had parked one down and was further back. And when we got there 30 minutes before game time, and we were parked closer, couple sections over from where we were on Saturday. So it was noticeably not as many people parked. Either because your parking was honored for the next day, no issues with that. The other thing they allowed you to do on Sundays, you could take your own food and non-alcohol drinks in. Um, because they ran out of food. They didn't do anything to restock those food vendors, is my understanding um, on
Sunday.
uh, on Sunday. Yeah,
Wow.
it's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
man. But yeah, so
you,
that's the way my week was. It been good, been good.
dude, that's good. Won't you wrap us up here with how folks can get in touch with you and if they're looking for anybody to come along and teach the classes, break down what you do, how folks can get in touch with you. And we'll wrap it up with that, and then we'll take it home from there.
Well, we do. OSHA 1910 120 classes. We do, other classes, in the medical field, leadership classes. We like to say business, leadership, and lessons learned. If you're interested, you can email us at wferguson62@gmail.com. You can reach out to Jeff, and Jeff can put us in touch together. We will be doing some program. Actually, tomorrow we're doing a program. In the mornings, we're doing a bloodborne pathogen program, and then tomorrow afternoon we're doing an active shooter program for a nonprofit organization. And then we're working on some. Jeff and I are working on some upcoming presentations out in Tennessee. Hopefully, Knoxville, Nashville, and Chattanooga in the near future. So stay tuned for that. I know Jeff is staying busy, and I'm staying busy with the business and my campaign that that I'm running for local office here in the county. But other than that, just happy to be here another week, and thank everybody for tuning in and listening to us tonight. And always remember, on Thursdays we do this live, so we can Jeff can take your questions. And I know I've reached out to a couple of people in the future that have stated they would like to come on and show with us. One's Matt Tatum, who's a professor at Furman College now, but also was a retired director of public safety, also at Henry County. And then also I spoke to the fire and EMS chief up in Withville, would be interested in coming on, and also the county administrator of Henry County, Dale Wagner, would be willing to come on. So maybe you and I can talk sometime offline, and I can touch base when those people are available, and we can come in and have a big round robin or something. And something else that Jeff and I have talked about is that we would like to, and that's one thing for spending out in Tennessee, is to go out on their own and put these presentations together and have folks come in and listen to us talk on certain topics. But the other thing is, if you're interested in having something, Jeff has a website and a lot of information up. I'm working on mine to get it up, and working with Jeff to get information out there on what we do and how we do it, and the like. So Jeff, just thanks again for the opportunity, man. It's another great session, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I thank you for teeing me up there, and I really appreciate it. I left you hanging last episode, Billy. I feel like I left you hanging. I feel like I left the guest hanging because you asked me a question, and I had to answer, and we got talking. I forgot to tell you, but you asked me, and I've shared this with you, but I want it for the greater good. I had asked how many cases of tetanus are reported annually, and I wanted to put this out there. Recent annual data. I went to the AI. I went to Grok again, and since 2010, there have been 7 cases of tetanus that was reported.
And that's in Virginia.
That's in Virginia. And here's your cases. We're not in outbreaks. The U.S. sees 20 to 40 cases annually, with Virginia's proportion aligning with its population size, around 2 to 3% of the U.S. total. In 2024, national cases were around 30, with Virginia contributing to 2. I thought that was interesting because we were talking about, you go to get that you turn a left turn at the doctor's office. Oh, you tetanus, we got to get that tetanus shot. And we do such a great job of managing that shot that tetanus is almost non-existent, Billy. I think it's.
Well, I mean, that's an optimistic way to look at it. I was doing the conspiracy theory thing that, there is no such thing as tetanus. It's just a conspiracy theory of how they give us the shot. So
just another way to give us a shot. They're stealing our. That's how they steal our information. All right, we'll close on this one. This is what I'm going to leave you with. Think about. When my son was born, new dad, they do a blood draw. Do you know this?
Oh yeah, I knew to get a blood draw. Yeah.
All right, and I said, and they go, and I go, well, hold on here, because I'm like you. I'm like, well, hold on here. Why would you draw blood from my son? And they go, well, this one right here gets sent to the state. And I go, okay, when's the results coming back? And they go, and they start, like everybody starts to dance here all of a sudden, because I'm like, well, hang on here. If we're doing testing, I want to know the results. And they go, well, what it's for is they test it for rare diseases and this, that, and the other.
I didn't know
I
that.
go,
I
okay,
didn't know why they drew the
yeah,
blood. I just know they drew
yeah,
it.
yeah. And I go, and I'll take a step further, and I go, no, so when will I get the positive or negative back? And they're like, well, you never do. And I went, that don't make no sense to me.
Yeah, I
So
know.
I'm like you, I get you. I'm like, well, wait a minute, why are y'all drawing this blood? It wasn't like they came in and said, hey, Mr. Robertson, hey, Mr. Robertson, we need you to sign this consent form or whatever. It was like, hey, we taking this blood. It's getting sent to Richmond. You ain't doing shit about it. So I went to tell you that. You got me thinking about that one as well. And I asked Dr. McBride. I think that's who I asked, and he had told me something similar. He goes, "Yeah, nobody ever gets results on that stuff." He goes, I guess you're fortunate that you never do, right? And I was thinking, I was like, yeah, Doc, I think there's a little more to this than this. Where they
That's what they're
say,
building that DNA database.
being a DNA
Yeah,
database, yeah.
you
We
know.
got it, man. Billy, thank you. Appreciate you being on with me tonight, brother. Thank you for everybody. If you need to get in touch with old Jeff, business coaching, what have you, jeffreyrobertson.com is the easiest way to get in touch with me. You can find my contact form, my socials. I'm active on Instagram. If you want to direct message me, that message comes right to me. So appreciate you, man. I'll see you in 2 weeks, Billy.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Be careful.